Welcome to my channel. I'm Ed Raby, otherwise known as the Rabyd Atheist. You are free to like or dislike the video, so please feel free to hit those buttons. Feel free to comment below, and I would appreciate if you subscribe to the channel and hit your notification bell so that you'll be aware of when more content gets released. Welcome to my channel. This video is more of a proper welcome than the first one that I ever posted. I want to kind of go through a few things about the channel and why I'm doing it. I also want to bury some of the concerns that I've had from the last video from family members and a few others to answer the question of why I would do this. A little bit of background. I would say, first of all, you need to understand that I was a preacher for well over 20 years, and quite frankly, I guess I miss having a pulpit. The pulpit, for me, was a way of expression, of letting people know what I thought. I'm good in conversations with people I trust. For years I taught as a pastor, I preached as a pastor, and I guess after a year I kind of miss having that pulpit, so there's an emotional center to it. But that doesn't really address the main reasons that I'm doing this. I'm going to borrow a few of them from one of my favorite authors, Rabyd Atheist. He said that his three main reasons for writing were as follows, and I'm going to say that it's pretty similar for me for why I'm doing a YouTube channel. Number one, he said, to provide for my family, to make money, root hog or die. And I would agree with that. It is very possible for somebody to do a YouTube channel and make some money at it, and I can always use the extra money that I can get. And so YouTube seems like a good way for a former preacher to talk about some things and maybe make a little cash on the side. Not planning on getting rich and famous with it, at least not yet, but that'll come if people become interested. And the way people become interested is the second reason, to entertain. You're not going to hang around this channel if you don't find my content interesting, you aren't entertained, you are, as a preacher I was okay, I guess, for entertainment, so I guess you can listen to me and decide whether or not you're entertained or not. The third reason that Rabyd Atheist had, and I certainly resonate with, is to make people think. As a pastor and preacher, the compliment that I got the most often from my preaching and teaching was this one: you make me think. I considered that a very high compliment. The problem was, of course, I was also going through the motions of studying all these things, and over time, problems began to develop in my ways of thinking about faith and Christianity, and I eventually discovered them, but I'll get to more of that in a minute. But the thing is, my viewpoints are now radically shifted from my days as a pastor and as a Christian, and some of what I preach about is going to be very different on this channel. I'm an atheist. I have no belief in God or gods. I have no belief in the afterlife. I have no belief in salvation or any of that stuff. I am a person of non-belief. I am unconvinced that a God exists, and I haven't heard any compelling reasons that are rational and reasonable to believe that one does exist. So that's kind of where I stand. And I came to that conclusion after many years as a Christian. I think all religions are made up by human beings. This includes everything of the trappings of my former faith, from all the rituals to going to church on Sunday to whatever it might be. It's all made up. It's stuff that human beings came up with, and that includes the Bible. I consider the 20 years I spent as a minister a colossal waste of my life and time. I'm still working through the emotions of that, and that's why I'm thankful to be part of a thing called the Clergy Project, where I kind of got inspired by the idea to do this. A few filmmakers on there, and I said, well, I can still have a pulpit through YouTube, so why not? I probably also shipwrecked a lot of people with some of my advice and faith. When you throw God or any other imaginary character into the advice that you give, then you probably should consider the fact that maybe the advice was a little bit off. When you're constantly appealing to some imaginary authority to give people advice, you often give them very bad advice, and they end up getting harmed. Do I have a little bit of guilt from that? Yeah, and maybe part of this channel is to make up for that. My motivation for this channel is to address my former faith and to be an advocate for non-faith. If you're a person particularly thinking about ministry, if you're a young person out there and you're young in your church and some preacher has preached to you and said, hey, I think you have the call of God on your life, I would consider it a personal victory if I convince you to go on and do something better with your life than be a minister. Don't waste your time. I also think I can be another voice for atheists everywhere to point out that we are neither immoral or stupid for being atheists, but rather we are compassionate people who care very much and who do have a great deal of respect for one another as human beings. We're very rational people and people that think about our positions and our moral positions. We often find ourselves at odds with religious people because we simply don't have any faith-based or religious motivations. And I think I can be another voice. There are many voices on YouTube. Some of the ones I would make note and thank currently over the last year would be Apologia, On Ra, Vice Rhino, and certainly many, many others that I've looked at. Some of these guys are fighting the good fight. I appreciate them for doing so. Finally, if I can convince anybody to throw off religion and faith for a better life, then bonus. I don't expect that the people that are dyed-in-the-wool Christians, that are absolutely committed to their faith and their religion, will ever be convinced by anything I say. But people are sitting on the sidelines. They're watching the debates. They're listening to what people have to say. And they're trying to make up their own mind. It is to you, perhaps, this channel is most made. I'm simply trying to be another voice saying, hey, you need to reconsider this faith and religion thing. It might be complete nonsense. I plan on doing this in multiple ways, specifically on this channel. Number one, I want to talk personally about my journey from being a Christian to an atheist. Now, I want a caveat in that. I'm going to severely edit myself in one regard. I am not going to bring up my relationships with family members necessarily unless they're pertinent to the discussion or I use very generic terms about them. Like I may refer to my children as a whole, but I won't specifically talk about a relationship I have with my 3 kids or my grandkids. I may talk about my marriage overall at certain times in the past. What's currently going on in my marriage is none of anybody's business, but some of the things that I observed in the past, and I will make a note that that's my observation, not necessarily my wife's or somebody else's. I'm also going to be addressing arguments from theology to show no matter what viewpoint you take theologically, the God you postulate in your own imagination will not work. I've tried for years. I was a professional theologian for years. I had a blog dedicated to theology. I may give the link to that in the description in case you're interested to see what my viewpoints were, although you should do it with the caveat that many times when I was discussing an item, it's because I was really losing my faith in it. It wasn't working. And I would secretly kind of keep my own counsel about the fact that I was losing my faith in that item. So I would be exploring it and eventually come up with the fact that this was complete and utter nonsense, and then I would walk away from it. The third thing I'll be doing, probably fairly regularly, is I'll be showing that the Bible is anything but the infallible, inerrant, and inspired work of God. It is not the Word of God. It is the word of about 40 to 60 men, a bunch of editors, and a bunch of people that compiled a bunch of things from all kinds of mythologies and everything else. And when you really look at the Bible, you begin to realize that it represents a character known as God, the biblical God, that I would consider to be immoral. He is supposedly the good guy of the story, but some of the things he does are straight up outright immoral and evil. Now, some might ask, what are my credentials? What right do I have to speak about these things? Well, one, I do have degrees in biblical studies. I have a BA from Trinity Bible College in Ellendale, North Dakota, where I learned to be a preacher. I also have an MA in theological studies from Asbury Theological Seminary in Wilmore, Kentucky. Both of my alma maters are probably not going to be very proud of what I do with the knowledge that they gave me, but I can call myself a biblical scholar and I can call myself a theologian, or I was a well, I'm still a biblical scholar, but am I still a theologian? Is an atheist theologian even possible? I don't know. I guess somebody can leave a comment on that if they watch this video and have one. I was also a pastor for 20 years. I was 2 years as a Christian education pastor and 18 years as a senior pastor in 3 churches. I kind of have an inside scoop on Christian education because that was always my passion. I grew up as a Christian in a Christian church, in a Pentecostal Assemblies of God church. I was a Bible quizzer and a very good one for a couple of years. It was that began to ignite my passion for studying the Bible. And the more I studied the Bible, the more problems I developed. For every question I would answer, I'd end up with 4 more. And eventually, the amount of questions became more than any answer could come up with. And that's why I probably don't have any faith. I guess I'm probably the truth of the statement that Isaac Asimov made, that the biggest cause of atheism is study of the Bible. And I'm paraphrasing there a little bit. I care about, the other thing that I would say and why I have the right to speak on these things is I care about you. You see, my rabid nature, what makes me the rabid atheist is not that I'm combative. As you can probably see, I'm not screaming into this microphone. It's not that I'm angry. My rabid nature is that I am rabidly compassionate about people of faith because I feel that you are wasting your time, you're wasting your skills, you're wasting your money on a fantasy. You're wasting all of those things on wishful thinking. And if I can convince you of that and put you on a path that's a little bit more realistic, that deals with the genuine real world, then I will gladly do so. That's one of my motivations. I am a compassionate anti-theist. I can't sit back based on what I've been through. I want to take this, what I perceive to be a waste of time, and I want to turn it into something a little bit more positive, that I can take my experiences and my education and show you, show any of you, why faith doesn't work. Now, am I perfect at that? No. Am I going to always have all the answers? No. Am I always going to really understand everything that I'm talking about? Not always. But I'm now, because I am an atheist, am very humble about what I don't know. It's a humiliating thing to know that you're a human being and that you have to make your way as a human being, to be compassionate because it's the right human thing to do, not because some authority figure up in the sky tells you to be compassionate. When you will yourself to be compassionate because it's the right thing to do, when you take responsibility from your own morality and your own life, that's when I think you truly become free, not when you're in the shackles of some religion. Once again, I want to welcome you to my channel. Thank you. I am Ed Rabyd, the Rabyd Atheist. Just a few notes about the channel before I sign off. Any comments on any video will be probably addressed at the end of the next video. So it's probably helpful to subscribe to the channel so you get those notifications when the next video drops. I have a lot of irons in the fire that I'm doing now, and I'm doing what's called prototyping, trying to find a different job. If you want to know what I'm talking about there's a book called Designing Your Life. In fact, it's right here. It's a good way, and I'm kind of going through it. So, if I can recommend that book as somebody who's going through a transition. The one thing I won't tolerate on this channel is name calling, so be advised. If you want to discuss something with somebody in the comments, but all they have to do is send me a message and say, hey, they called me a name. Don't call people stupid or an idiot. It doesn't really show. If you can demonstrate somebody's a liar, that's one thing, but you better demonstrate it. Don't just call them one. And I'm going to try to keep name calling and profanity off this channel as much as possible. Not because if you didn't meet me, I don't cuss like a sailor. I do. It's just I'm trying to make this a place where we can have hopefully a discussion about the issue. Because in the end, my job is to rationally convince you to be a rabid atheist like myself. I'm Ed Rabyd, Rabyd Atheist. Thank you for coming to my channel. And thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Bye.